Training the dogs is one thing, but training the people, that's really where it is, because now they can be better to their dogs. Their dogs can trust them more, and they're going to be more successful. And I've done a lot of coaching of people at nationals, and it's really what turns me on, is putting together the dog-handler combination and helping them understand each other. And well, success is bound to happen when you can do that.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Purina Masterclass, our second Masterclass of 2026. I'm excited to be here tonight with y'all. And I guess, first of all, I want to thank Purina, Carl Gunzer, Ray Vogt, and everybody at the Purina Pro Plan team. They keep doing things for the world of dogs, both in their product and in their support. Amazing. So, once again, thank you for being here. And tonight, we're going to have some fun. Well, let me tell you a little bit about our guest this evening. Our guest grew up, or maybe I should say I grew up, probably not more than 20 miles from this gentleman. And what I want to tell you about, and hold on just a second, Robin, is there something? Okay. My chief fun officer just said, remember, we got a chat box down there at the bottom. Give us a shout out. Let us know where you're from. There's also a Q&A box, and we'll take some questions. But Ron and I, Mr. Ron Boehme, is tonight's guest. And I'm going to introduce Ron in just a minute. And we've got Travis from Kansas. Thanks, Travis, for giving us a shout out. We got Brandon from Southwest Michigan. Well, tonight's guest migrated from the Windy City to the Wolverine State. Got Nebraska shouting out. We got Bucks, PA, Muskegon, Michigan. Awesome. Thanks, everybody, for giving us a shout out. Well, you're figuring out the chat box. Q&A box is down there too, and you're flying in fast and furious. All right, good stuff. So I guess at this point, I'm going to go ahead and introduce this evening's guest. Without any further ado, we're going to do that. Hey, Ron. How are you, buddy?
I'm good, Pat. How are you?
I'm great. Better now that we're talking together here, and I've just been kind of reminiscing a little bit about my youth growing up in Northwest Indiana. What were you actually in Chicago? What city did you grow up in?
Yeah, the mailing address was still Chicago, and I want to apologize. I had some laryngitis last week, so I don't usually sound like Froggy from, the cartoon series from Little Rascals. But yeah, I grew up in the city limits of Chicago on the very south end of it. So scooting around over to Indiana was something we did as soon as we had a driver's license. We either went to Indiana to get in trouble, or we went up to Wisconsin to get in trouble. And so yeah, we probably passed each other on I-80 or I-90, or you probably came over and slummed it a little bit in Chicago once in a while when you were a youngster. Yeah.
Used to go up fishing in Wisconsin since I was 5, 6 years old. Ron, we had to work at it to be outdoorsmen, didn't we, in that part of the world?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little older than you, but we're both baby boomers basically.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it wasn't common, especially in the city, that you would have anybody that even had a boat, or let alone a camper or even a pickup truck. It was just, it just wasn't the norm. It was a very urban place. The only saving grace for me and my small group of hoodlums was we had two very large cemeteries that bordered our neighborhood. I know that sounds weird, but when you're a kid and you want to go explore, you can only go up and down the alley so many times and look in trash cans, and somebody yells at you. So, and a lot of the cemetery was very big, and it had a very, very large, at least to us at that point, it was probably only 100 acres, but it had a very large undeveloped portion of the cemetery. And people had baseball fields mowed out there. They'd get their dad's mower, they'd cut a hole in the fence and they'd mow the grass down. They were literally mowing down CRP grass too, by the way. It was, Illinois was the prairie state, and that back part of that cemetery was full of CRP grass and pheasants, if you can believe it or not.
Well,
So yeah,
certainly some of my early duck hunting was done on the back of a cemetery in a little pond
yeah,
in Maryville with my best friend growing up, Andy Attar, and a guy by the name of Daryl Collins. So you're right. We snuck into the cemetery and shot wood ducks in the morning, and that was our version of urban hunting.
yeah. We started with bow and arrows, because it was quiet. And
Oh,
then, but I can tell you we weren't real successful. But it just felt like we emulated, the westerns we saw and Daniel Boone and Davy. We kind of emulated those old black and white TV shows that were reruns in the 60s. And we made our own bows, which were ineffective. We made our own slingshots, were even worse. I would say the advent of becoming a hunter. Pat, do you remember when the wrist rocket came out? That slingshot,
oh yeah.
that aluminum slingshot.
Had the little deal that's supported on your wrist.
Right. And I was skinny enough, like most kids were back then. We could put that across the side of our ribs and pull our shirt down, and nobody would know we had the slingshot.
Oh,
So, now I don't think I could put that wrist rocket on my side of my belly anymore, but we would kind of walk down the sidewalk like nobody knows. We felt like we had a concealed weapons permit.
yeah. I was going to say, yeah, that's the first concealed weapon.
Yeah, and
Trying to
we'd go
shoot
out there.
rabbits and squirrels and whatever you could.
We'd try, I guess we would perturb the squirrels from tree to tree. I don't think we ever injured a squirrel. I think we did get a rabbit one time by luck. But what was funny is a friend of mine that, like you had like a best friend, you probably remember the Northwest School of Taxidermy was an ad in every, we got outdoor life. I got outdoor life when I was about 6th grade or 5th grade. My aunt got it for me. And that's probably really why the bug stayed, because I got that magazine and you'd see articles and you saw the ads in the back. And so my buddy Ricky, he ordered some #1 long spring traps because we knew there was raccoons and possums and thought we were going to be trappers, And he came up with the ingenious idea of gluing corn to the trap plate with Elmer's glue. And the pheasants, we caught several pheasants by their head as they would pick the corn, and bam, that long spring trap would catch them by the neck. And then we would practice our taxidermy on them. So yeah, that was, I'm not saying if they were all, it wasn't in season and they weren't all roosters. I'm just being transparent. I think the statute of limitations ran out about 60 years ago on that one.
So when did you start getting into dogs, Ron?
Well, we always had a dog, but there was nobody in the neighborhood with sporting dogs. But what we did have, fortunately, was one friend's dad was a hunter. He was from Minnesota. And another friend's dad was, I wouldn't call him a competition trap shooter, but a regular Sunday trap shooter, on a league. And when I was about 14 or 15, they took me to the Downers Grove Sportsman Club, and I got to shoot a shotgun. And of course, then you start seeing some guys that would bring their dogs, and the dogs would be tied up by the clubhouse, or you'd see them in the parking lot. And like all those outdoor life magazine stories were just sticking in my head, And now I got the shotgun. My dad actually bought it from Mr. Gorman. I wasn't old enough to own it. And so that was my shotgun on Sundays, and started to learn how to shoot trap, a little bit of skeet. And then we found out that the state of Illinois, when we were old enough, we were 18, you could go, they had a pheasant put and take like we do back, and like Michigan brought that back. And Illinois had it, and you had to apply for it. But if you were to go in the will call line, because inevitably you got these permits all through the summer. You know, you get one permit if you're lucky. And but people would not be able to make it. There's always somebody that's got a cancellation. So we learned that if you went in the will call line the night before and you were one of the first couple vehicles, you'd get in on the hunt. And we didn't have a dog, but we would just walk up these released pheasants. And that was really the bug for the like to this day, I shouldn't say this on the show, but I don't think Purina's tied into the turkey hunting world. I never found turkey hunting exciting because it's shooting a bird standing still. I thought hitting a bird on the wing was just the best thing you could do. It was not that you made you a great shot or a great it's just the challenge of it, you know.
Mhm.
And I still find it a challenge, you know, 50 years later. Uh, when I connect with a bird on the wing, I can go right back to those first pheasants I shot. But with the dogs, there would be a lot of people, you know, we were 17, well, some of the kids were 17, 18 and 19 years old. And there'd be people that came there that were regular hunters in Illinois or maybe Indiana from, you know, that Kankakee place was just a few miles from the state line of Indiana. And there was a guy that met us up at the clubhouse. We were checking in our birds. I think we each had a bird. And of course, with a with a pointing dog, especially, that's what I was exposed to. Those guys didn't have any problem getting their birds. These, you know, the birds were released the night before by the state. And he asked us if we wanted to go back out and try to get our limit with his dog. And we're like, really? Oh, yeah, you know. And I remember he had a liver and tick German short hair. All I can remember was I saw that dog point. I can't tell you if I remember if it was steady or not. Probably wasn't. Most, you know, most of them aren't. But we got to fill our extra bird for like four of us in about an hour. And I got to watch that dog work. And like in that moment, I was like, I'll have one someday. I'll have a dog because I just couldn't believe you could read about it, but when you see it, you know, that was the nail in my coffin. Yeah.
So your first dog was what breed?
Well, when I finally got to Michigan a few years later as an adult, I got a German short hair pointer.
Okay.
Problem was it was in the newspaper and it was $45. Now, granted, 35, 40 years ago, I would say what would a good short hair cost back then? $200 probably,
Right.
right? This is $45 with no papers. Um, I never shot anything over that dog that was pointed. Never. And I had him for a couple years, tried and tried and tried. He didn't. I'm not saying he couldn't have pointed if he was in someone's hands, but he was an adult dog that had his own mind, his own way. Good retriever, not much of a point, not any kind of a pointer. And the bug was so bad, I met a fellow at a job site who had a short hair. I went grouse hunting with him, and then immediately I started looking into kennels, and I found a kennel in Rockford, Michigan, and I bought my first female German short hair. And yeah, and it was, I don't want to say it was my best dog ever. It was it was a dog that came out of the box just wanting to hunt for me.
Hmm.
I was surprised. Like when they say it's all instinct, the hunting part is all instinct. You know, the pointing is an instinct, the
Right.
retrieving is an instinct, all that's an instinct. And this dog had what I've learned to appreciate more than anything else in a dog breed is natural cooperation. She wasn't a self hunter. She was hunting for me. And, you know, the 20 some dogs I've had since then, some have, some haven't, you know, but, you know, you learn to train some of that out of it or over mask it with training. But yeah, so the first couple dogs were German short hairs and right away started going out to South Dakota, you know, because again, all those outdoor life magazines, every October, there would be a story on, you know, South Dakota pheasant hunting. And
Right.
we had to go experience it. And we made the mistake, me and my buddy Jeff, of taking both of our dogs out in every field every day for 5 days. That's not a recipe for success, let me tell you. But we did it. The dogs looked like they were in a prison camp by the time we got home. They were skinny as a rail, pads were worn out, tired, but my God, we had so much fun. And yeah, so short hairs and And in South Dakota for my first big trip, I knew I was never going to stop after that.
How old were you then?
At that point, well, I was 28 when I moved to Michigan.
Okay.
Can't remember. I was in my 30s when we first went to South Dakota. I couldn't tell you exactly what it was, but I think my twins were born, and my wife wasn't happy that I was going to be gone for a week.
So I told you, I mean, we grew up right across the state line, and
Hmm.
I think the first date I told you about us hunting in the back of the cemetery, but now we're on the Kankakee River
Yeah.
and we're at Kankakee Game Area, I guess it was, and we shoot a bird, and I step out into the river to get it, and bloop, I go in down over my head, over my waders. Andy pulled me out of the. I said, Andy, we got to get a dog. I said, this ain't gonna work. And that's kind of how I got retrievers. And I started with
Yeah.
Chesapeakes, but and then there were three of us, Jim, Andy, and myself. And Jim had a Weimaraner, and I had a Chessie, and that's how we started. And we were we met our first trip to Iowa, senior in high school, and that was quite an adventure. So the hook gets set, doesn't it? And
You can't shake it. You can't shake it. As they say, it wasn't a circle hook. It wasn't easy to take out.
no,
It was, it was a treble hook, and it's still stuck in my lip.
but you know what? Uh, my dad, we were in East Gary, then called, changed our name to Lake Station, had
Yeah.
an
Yep.
insurance agency, and I was 20, early 20s, and kind of doing the business, half school, and he knew that this wasn't for me, and he said, "Son, don't spend your life behind a desk." And boy, the screen door didn't hit me in the butt, I'll tell you that. And off I went. So yeah, I mean, so a life in sporting dogs in fields, and and it was so neat that you and I met. We met at Purina Summit,
Yeah.
and well, when I heard you talk right away, I said, that guy's from my neck of the woods," and I
Yeah, I
knew.
do carry a little of that dare, D's, does, and them, a little of that da bears, you know.
Yeah, the guys would say, when you teach your dog doubles, you throw one over there and you throw one over there, and you pick up the both of them,
Both of them,
the both
exactly.
of them. So that's
Yeah,
Chicago talk for doing a double, the both of them. And
yeah,
it's great. And it's just, I travel through there, and I have a lot of friends still live in that part of the world, but boy, oh boy, it just wasn't for me. Wasn't for
no,
me.
I didn't. I never wanted to stay there. I always had aspirations of, getting some property and all that came to fruition for me, luckily. Getting out of Illinois. And it wasn't because it was Illinois, it's just because Michigan's a whole lot sexier, lot more public land to hunt,
Mhm.
a lot more birds to hunt, and Illinois at that point we could find some pheasants down there, even north of Kankakee, in our 20s, along railroad tracks. We weren't supposed to be hunting along railroad tracks, but you know, we did a lot of things that nobody really bothered us. And but when I got to Michigan and I started grouse hunting and woodcock hunting and a little bit of pheasant hunting here, yeah, I felt like I felt like I arrived, I wasn't very good at anything, but gosh darn it, I had a dog and a gun. Yeah.
Ironically, again, I ended up being in Michigan from mid 80s for many years. So we probably were on each other's. You probably did some stuff at Ionia Recreation Area.
Yep.
That was
Yep.
about 10 miles where I spent about 19 years running retrievers. So we had parallel dreams, and it's cool that we got a chance to get together now and reminisce.
Yeah.
And so tell me, you wanted to talk a little bit about then you went on to judging the
Yeah.
tell me
Yeah.
tell me about that experience for you.
That was probably like out of the dog world thing. That's probably the most thing I'm pleased with that I did. As I've changed breeds, I've tried different breeds, I've done a lot of hunting all over Canada and in the country, but uh, there was an ad for a group. It's called NAVDA. Most people have heard of it in the pointing dog world. And there was a couple of chapters right within a couple hours of me. And I went to a training day, and there was plenty of novices just like me and a few people to steer you in the right direction. And I met a couple of judges. We had at the grounds, they had a test one weekend. I wasn't in the test, but I wanted to go help out and be a helper. And I met a couple of the judges, and they were only a little bit older than me, but they were like, it's like, my God, they're so smart. You'd listen to them describe the dog's work, and when they read the scores and when they explained things to handlers, I'm like, these guys really know dogs. Like I'm just scratching here. And probably earlier than I should have, I applied to be an apprentice judge. And that process took me most people can do it in 2 years. It took me about 3 years. And I remember the judge development director at that time said, Ron, why don't you concentrate on getting your dog through the utility test? Because that is one of the requirements. You don't have to get a top score in it, but you got to pass the test.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I'll pass the test. I want to start apprenticing. And the amount of knowledge I learned from all the different judges I apprenticed under, that was really like a seminal moment. Like nobody would call me a dog. I can train my own dog for what I need to train it for. And I've helped people at chapter levels. I've never hung my shingle out, and I never will as a dog trainer, but I learned all the things that people do wrong by judging their dogs.
Yeah.
And all the things they do right. Right. And having those judge mentors, it's like a half-hour walk in the field. One judge is assigned to the person with the dog, the handler. The other two judges drop back about 50 yards, and we observe it, but we're chatting. And if I would see something, I'd say, well, what just happened? What did I miss? Or what did I see? I'd learned about blinking. I learned about all kinds of things that most people don't know that a dog's doing. And that just really, I was so proud the first day I got to judge another person's dog. I was literally, I felt like all the teachers that I was afraid of in school I wasn't much of a test person, right? And now I got to be the teacher and the principal and the judge and the jury. But I had good mentors that never let it go to your head. Like, and if they caught you saying something, I remember one of my judges, Dick DeCam, great guy. He said to me, he said, if I ever hear you say that again, I'll tell the executive council to take your judgeship away. I compared the dog we were judging to the dog we judged 20 minutes ago. And that is a no-no. That's a different dog we judged. You don't say, well, that dog did that. That's not judging. That's comparing, And so I had some great judges that really kept me in line. And then later on, I went into the senior program, meaning every judge, every test has a senior judge who's really responsible for opening comments and closing comments and mailing in the scorecards. The title senior judge sounds great, but they just need one guy to say, I'll spend the $450 on postage and mail all the cards in and give the open. And of course, I'm not shy. So opening comments and things like that and talking, reading the scores. And, you've done a lot of this, Pat. Reading the scores when it's a good score is fun. But when you're reading a dog's score that really stunk up the day, and you got to say, search 2, pointing 1, and and then you got to kind of like do a little hand clap when the dog didn't get any prize or any good score that day. That takes a little bit of something too. You got to be able to do that. And if you don't like doing that, you don't want to be a judge because you got a lot of bad scores to read as well. But yeah, the judging just on top of that, you get sent all over the country.
Okay.
And in this organization, they always had to have what they call an out-of-area judge. They were always trying to keep the judging. Yes, 3 judges from the state are probably going to judge your dogs just fine. But to keep it more transparent and not look like those three judges are all best friends, you always had to have an out of area judge. And because I traveled a lot for a living, I would put in for, I wouldn't turn down a judging assignment. I don't care where it was. I worked all over the country and I would time these things where, so I was able to travel quite a bit. And with traveling, you see the country and you get a lot of invites, which are always, can't take them all, but you get a lot of good invites. And so I got to see a lot of the hunting country that I hadn't yet added to my years of hunting. Like all the states I've hunted in, I probably judged in most of them before I hunted in them.
Is NAVDA all over the country?
Yeah, it's all over. It's all over well, it's actually in every state besides Hawaii,
Okay.
and it's in some of the Canadian provinces as well.
Okay.
And it's still an active organization. I wouldn't say they have a chapter in every state, but pretty close. In some states like Wisconsin and Michigan, I'm sure it's like that way in the lab world. Some states are just an epicenter
Yeah.
for more events, and there's a lot more opportunity. You live in Wyoming, well, you're going to be driving. You're going to be driving to
Right.
participate. Right. But
So
yeah,
are you, when you're in the West, just help, pardon my ignorance here, are you hunting species from that part, or are they always, are you always like release pheasants and?
it's always released. There are other organizations out there that have done wild bird trials or wild bird tests. Very difficult to make that happen.
Right.
So yeah, and typically, I don't know when it was, probably 15, 20 years ago, chuckers kind of took over the game bird farm. I mean, you could still had to have pheasants for part of it, but the chuckers were more accessible, a little hardier, a little easier for the gunners to hit. But when I started, it was always quail and pheasants, which was a real dichotomy. You had these little buzz bombs, and the chuckers. The chuckers were more dog friendly. Let me put it that way. For a good dog.
Did you see regional differences in dogs and training styles?
Yeah, you do see it when you go out. When you go out west, they do tend to have a bigger running dog. I would almost say not out of control, but something we just don't see in the grouse woods, or the quail plant, down south for quail or up out east. I don't want my dog 300 yards away when I'm grouse hunting. Granted, God bless her if she points and holds it, and if the grouse agrees to its part of the game, getting through the woods for 300 yards can be a real obstacle, right? And you go out west, and those dogs, you're like, wow, that's kind of far. But if you read the rules and aims in the judge's handbook, we can judge that whether it's at 50 yards or 300 yards. If we turn, if the gallery turns and we tell the handler to let's start walking to the east, even that dog that's out there at 200 or 300 yards, they're paying. If they're a good dog, they're paying attention to you, and they will see that you've changed direction. They'll start hunting in front of you, going to the east as opposed to the north. But I did see the range difference a lot, and that's just because they always had that ability. We didn't see that as much. And then most of the chapters, unless you're out west, we're usually on some kind of regulated state game area, an Ionia, if you will, like you went to, or a Highland grounds.
Yep.
So you were limited. But you would still see a dog that could come up from the west and rein it in because all of a sudden there'd be a wood line, and he was like, no, I'm hunting the field,
Right.
So you see the differences, but the good dogs adapt to it. Yeah.
So that took you into your podcast series, which I love the way you described it. That you wanted to be that person that wrote a diary down on, I went today, I had 10 flushes, and, and I just, boy, it really struck a chord in me because I got to read, when my father passed away, some of his diaries of our fishing. And he talked about coffee in the morning and what he did.
Mhm.
And that's kind of the way you described it.
Yeah, right away I can't remember who gave it to me. Probably my wife, uh, or maybe a parent. But I had a Sportsman's Journal. This one really wasn't made for bird hunting. Later on, Orvis had one that was kind of made for bird hunting, right? It
Mhm.
had flushes, counts, species, weather. I mean, it'd fill it in like a chart. But I would write things down like in November after October and sometimes in January after December. And the next year I wouldn't do it. And then a few years later, I'd see it and I'd read it. I loved reading it. And I was like, oh my God, I forgot we got two birds there and I missed three, because I would write all those things. So I always wanted to be like, keep a good journal. Didn't know if I would have kids that hunted or anything later. I just wanted it because I love reminiscing. I love antiques. I love history and I like journals, but I was just never good at it. And I was lucky enough to go do some episodes with Steve Rinella from the Meat Eater show.
Mm-hmm.
And he grew up right here in Michigan, and he worked for me as a right out of high school, and his brothers did as well.
Oh, well, they did.
Yeah, and so it was really neat watching his trajectory, and we're still really good friends. And when he was just starting out, they couldn't afford to fly anybody out anywhere. They were just starting out their show. And he says, Ronnie, could you come out? And he always calls me Ronnie. He said, could you come out and do a hunt in Montana with me for blue grouse? I'm like, yeah, sure. I went out there on my own dime, showed up, slept in a tent, slept in somebody's house one night, and we filmed an episode of that. And I was like, well, that's the coolest journal in the world. I can watch that on television, that whole hunt. But later on, a couple years later, we were doing a sandhill crane hunt in Texas for an episode. And I'm known for drinking a fair amount of beer from time to time. And I know you're not afraid to have a drink because you and I've had a couple drinks in the
That's
hotel
right.
lobby.
That's right.
There's nothing that makes a hunting conversation better than a little lubricant. And I remember Steve came up to me, he says, hey, Ronnie, don't drink that much beer. And I said, well, what do you mean, how much beer? He goes, no, we're going to do a podcast tonight. And I'm like, I thought we had to go into town or something, I had listened to a couple of podcasts at that point, but I thought they were all done in a studio, like with an engineer, like a TV show. And he said, no, no. He says, I'm not worried about you being drunk. I just can't let you get up and down and go to the bathroom and put the headphone down. We're going to be sitting right at the kitchen table. I'm like, really? It's kind of. And his producer brought out this case with a recorder and 4 headsets. And we just started talking about the hunt. And I left that hunt, flew home right before Christmas, and I told my wife, I'm buying a recording machine and a headset, and I'm going to start doing a podcast. And she looked at me like, couldn't you just get a girlfriend and couldn't you just start wasting money in Vegas like everybody else or watching football? What are you talking about? A podcast? She didn't even know what a podcast was. And I thought of it as like, if I can record these stories after a hunt and I did a lot of them after a test. I said, what a great way to have my journal, an audio journal, and it'll be 100% accurate, no spelling errors. And as far as I know, unless the internet breaks, someday my grandkids or maybe great grandkids will be able to like, that's my grandpa. This is I would, Pat, I'm sure you're the same way. Wouldn't you love to have a recording of your dad and his buddies playing a poker game, talking about whatever they were talking about?
Yeah.
And just laughing, and you hear the can of beer open or the ice in the glass and the cigars or cigarettes back in the day lighting up. And you wouldn't have to have the video. That
Right.
audio, would be, so that was the crux for starting it.
What year
And
would that have been? When did you do
2015,
Okay.
January. So I'm in my 12th year of doing it now. And I started in January. I did 4 episodes a month. Every once in a while, I drop off an episode or I get busy or I go on vacation. Um, and then it really started catching on. Like there was no other podcast about, let alone hunting dogs. There was no other podcast about pointing dogs. I've always kind of stayed in my lane. I've had you on my podcast.
Uh-huh.
We talk about retrievers. I love them. I've got a little cocker. But my background for my guest backlog, I've met so many people in the pointing dog world, and of course through Purina, that I kind of like had a never-ending guest list, from friends I hunted with to people I met at tests to representatives of RGS and PF and QF and DU and all those organizations. So it was kind of like this is. I mean, I started out with my phone on the table and a recorder tilted down to the phone. I mean, I didn't have a mixing box. I didn't have any. I did have a headset that I didn't need, and the audio was terrible, but the content was well received. Because really there wasn't anybody talking about it. And, over the years, there's been a lot of them, just like in the retrieving world. And I mean, there's ton of them now, but yeah, I was the first one to come up with that. They called the Hunting Dog Podcast. And I remember funny talking about Steve Ranella because of his success in the show. I called him up and I said, when I was starting the podcast, he goes, well, that doesn't surprise me. You love talking. You love dogs. You love people. And I wanted to have this really sexy name like Sporting Dogs from Coast to Coast or The World of Dog. Like I was trying to look for some title that would grab it. And Steve's on the phone with me. He goes, that's stupid. Why don't you just call it the Hunting Dog Podcast? I'm like, all right, that works. It covers everything. I can talk to houndsmen. I can talk to retriever people. I'm not putting myself in a corner, and I don't have a little, Ron Boehme's hunting dogs I don't have any of that. So that's where that became my journal, and I love it now. And now my grandkids, they're still not old enough to listen to it, but a few of them are already starting to hunt a little bit with their dads.
Yeah.
And I know that when I'm dead and gone, they're going to be able to go back and listen to Poopa, as they call me, and they're going to have some laughs. They're going to have some laughs.
Poopa, huh?
Yeah, Poopa. Where'd they come up with these grandpa names? I don't know.
So you've done, one a week?
Excuse me, that water went down, and that was water. That was not anything else. That went down the wrong pipe, Pat.
All right, well, go ahead and get yourself settled there, buddy.
I apologize. I was laughing at myself. I shouldn't do that. Yeah, one a week. I tell sponsors, I do 50 shows a year. So
okay.
Don't hold me to one a week, but 50 and it from time to time, it gets to be a real chore.
Oh yeah.
Like,
I was,
yeah, it's somebody you plan to do something with, all of a sudden life gets in the way and you don't have a guest that week. Or everybody's really busy during the show season. Like we go to Pheasant Fest. Like when I see you at Pheasant Fest, you might be able to get some interviews while you're there, but they're on the road to SHOT Show and Duck Fest. And, from time to time, it's difficult to find a guest, but yeah, I've got a few people that I can always call up and say, hey, I need you back on, and we'll find something to laugh about or talk about.
Yeah, I do one or two a month, and it's, now, most of what I'm doing is what we're doing right here. But
right.
But it's the same thing. We just happen to be getting to see each other and laugh at each other a little bit.
I've said this so many times on my podcast, and I've given some talks, at different events and things. People say that I wouldn't hunt if it wasn't for my dogs. Well, it's like, that's kind of obvious, I wouldn't hunt if it wasn't for friends.
Yeah.
Like I will go hunting by myself. I can take a walk about 3 miles from here. I can drive over and I can still put up a couple grouse, take an hour walk, 2 hour walk. But when it comes to a trip, I want to see my friends. I want to reconnect with them.
Yeah.
You know, the older you get, your friends move away, but you come back for that hunting camp. And the conversations, you know, they're the same one you had the year before, but for some reason they're twice as funny. You know?
So you're over 600 episodes now?
Oh yeah, yeah. Because there was a couple years where I did more than that. Yeah, if you listen to it on iTunes or Spotify, I think most of those they only log about maybe a year or two's worth of episodes.
Hmm.
But there's ways you can dig it. You can Google it. You can look it up through an RSS feed. It's a little complicated, but I'll get longtime listeners that are like, "Hey, how do I find that episode?" And I can find it for them, you know. But I've had trainers on. I've had just hunters on. I've had educators on. I've had authors on. So I like expanding it, and it always comes back down to, God, I'd like to go hunting with that person now, you know?
And have you hunted with a lot of them?
Oh yeah, yeah. I wouldn't. A lot's probably not the right word. A good portion of them. A good portion of them, and a fair portion of them. I I hunted well. I know someone who's listening. Miss Broom is listening,
Oh yeah,
and
yep, yep,
well,
yep.
I'm sure
There she
Jennifer's
is,
on
right
there.
there.
And we hunted together up in the UP. And I had her as a guest on my show, and then she was going on her furlough out west, and we hooked up on the way back, and then I got to meet Mike Lardy on that trip. I got to interview him, and yeah, it's like, what do they say? There's only 7 degrees of separation in the world, right? In the dog world, I think there's about two.
Yeah.
You talk for a little bit to somebody, and you know somebody that knows somebody. Yeah, it's very small world, and it's very fun world. Yeah.
Do you have any episodes that really stand out, or anything that would be fun to share, funny thing to share?
That's always one of them. What's your favorite bird to hunt? I'm like, the one I'm hunting.
No, I got it, but
There was well, there was one back in the day, but I don't think anybody could find it unless they knew how. When I was in my primitive recording stages, I was known for I drank a lot of Miller Lite. Now I like better beer now. This only happened in the last few years. I drink a lot of Miller Lite stock dropped when I went to craft beer. And I drank cans of beer, and you would hear that can pop and pop in an hour conversation. Sometimes it would pop 5 or 6 times. And I had people that were counting the beers and getting a hold of me. And it got to be like, now in my intro, there's an audio, and at the end of it, there's a big pop, you know. So all those were probably my favorite ones, but I don't know if you could find them. And I was at I was at Pheasant Fest years ago. I can say that now because I've been doing the podcast going on. This is my 12th year. First year at Pheasant Fest, the guy came up to me, he said, "Hey, big fan of the podcast, Ron." Shakes my hand. I said, "Great." He says, "Is there any chance?" I was interviewing this guy from England about retrievers and spaniels. I can't remember his name, but he was so articulate and so easy to interview. I couldn't pause him. And I was probably on beer 6 or 7 for some reason. Might have had 3 before, 4 during. I'm not sure. But I had to go to the bathroom so bad. I mean, so bad that I had one choice. I could either wet myself and keep listening, because it was kind of early in my podcasting career, and I had a couple of sponsors then. I think I had Gunner Kennels, and I had Purina. So I don't want to let anybody down. I'm trying to be a little more professional. And I had a step, because there was no audio like Zooms now. I had to step over just a little bit away from my directional microphone, which I did not realize was so sensitive. And I had to go take a pee. And this guy at Pheasant Fest, he goes, "Is there any chance when you were interviewing that guy from England that you were peeing in a coffee can?"
you got busted, huh?
Busted.
Now that's
Busted.
funny. That's funny.
So never happened again. I will tell you that it's never happened again. But but I don't take I take subjects seriously. I don't take life real seriously. Like if you don't want to have fun, I'm not the guy you want to hang out with. I'm not a very political person. I'm not a breed snob. Uh, in fact, I hate it when I hear somebody say something disparaging about a breed, because it's like it's kind of showing you don't have that much experience if you think all of those dogs are bad.
Right.
You just don't have enough experience.
I
So
think
yeah,
3 minutes into the first time I met you, I pretty much came to the conclusion you just described.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, that the podcast has been, uh, it's been it's now my job because I'm retired from my construction career, and it's what I do. And I say it's fully funded. I have sponsors and contracts, and we do episodes. In fact, tomorrow I'm recording one with Carl Gunzer from
Awesome.
Purina. Yeah, and we're gonna catch up on old times and talk a little. It'll be a little Purina infomercial, but why not? We know what they do for the sporting world, and that's another. This I'll stay out of this rabbit hole, but I'm gonna go there, Pat. When I talk to other people and they talk about different not all dog food, but some dog foods, and like that's too expensive. That's too expensive. I'm like, well, first of all, you probably aren't paying attention to what you're getting and what you can feed and what you can. There's a lot of different Purina dog foods too, right? But what they give back to the sporting world, there's no other dog food company that does that.
No,
Not,
not even close.
not even a smidgen. And if that food costs a couple more dollars and it goes back into habitat with Pheasants Forever and goes back into the dog conformation shows and the hunting shows, NAVDA, the retriever trial, if that dollar goes to there, then God bless them. I'll get off that soapbox.
They've been like that since day one too. I mean,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
when I first started feeding Pro Plan, I think it came out late 80s, 87, 88.
Mm-hmm.
I was there, and they took over the reins and started pushing Yukonuba out of the way, and they hadn't looked back since.
No, no. You
So-
remember when Pro Plan came out in that, what I call a kitty litter dispenser, the plastic, the tote? That was great. You had transportation dog food crates.
Yeah.
I love that. When they came out with that, I saved those. Boy, I used those buckets for decades until the lids wore out of them. Yeah.
So you started, and we're going to jump in here into one of your passion projects now.
Yeah. Yeah. Where that came from, and I know you've got a little video clip you're going to show of it.
Yep.
People, as much as they like the fun episodes and the beer drinking, there's a trainer here in West Michigan who's real well known, pointing dog trainer. Now he does some lab work, but his 95% of his work on pointing dogs, and specifically just hunting. He's a field trial judge. He's a setter guy, knows dogs in and out. Great trainer. And I would have him come on the podcast probably in about year 2 or 3. He'd come over and we'd do question and answers.
Mhm.
And those were my most downloaded ones. And they would always say, bring Justin back on. Bring Justin. He just had a way of, like many trainers, explaining things where you're like, that's what I didn't do, or that's what I did wrong. And Pat, your whole thing is training people to train their dogs, right?
Right.
When you can get the person to remember to do something, you got somewhere. And he could get those. It was like when E.F. Hutton talked, those old commercials that most of these listeners won't.
People listen, right?
Well, yeah, when E.F. Hutton talks.
People
And
listen.
with that, I wanted to do some content with him, some video content. Well, Justin does not like any kind of social media. Any kind.
Okay.
He's basically a hermit in a sense when it comes to social media. But I said, we were having a conversation one morning, and I said, I think he might have said it. He said, what if we were to do some kind of a training video, like a real, like really how I do it? And because all the dogs that comes into his kennels in the course of a year, every breed, he said we could get a lot of good content, and the wheels started rolling. I'm sure most Labrador people are familiar with Cornerstone Gun Dog Academy. That's another online course, right? And I looked that up and I watched it, and we realized we basically watched it so we could figure out what website they were using to put this on, right?
Yeah.
And so we found that out, and we started filming for a year and a half. We even filmed on hunting trips. So we filmed in different states. We had drone footage. We bought a good camera. I was the cameraman. He was the trainer. I had my input, but he was the trainer. Anyway, now we have literally the shoebox of SD cards and film clips. Very, very poorly organized, but it's all there. A year and a half worth of stuff.
Now the work begins.
Exactly. And we found an editor that was a friend of mine who actually did my website for the Hunting Dog podcast. I've known Matt for years. I didn't know his full-time job was an editor. So the company that he worked for, we hired that company. And it was a scary endeavor. It was a lot of money.
Well, let's take a quick look at this.
Yeah, please.
And then we'll jump back in and talk some more about it.
Yeah.
Since the origins of wing shooting, gun dog owners have sought assistance in training their dogs. The Upland Institute is a new online video training series that brings professional training methods direct to your computer or smartphone. Co-founded by Justin McGrail and Ron Boehme, it combines 6 decades of training, testing, hunting, and judging upland bird dogs into a complete program for taking your dog from beginner to experienced hunting companion. Historically, training books, seminars, and videos have focused on training steps but feature already trained dogs, often leaving out the how, the why, and the common issues faced in the process of training your own dog. The Upland Institute will highlight a wide variety of breeds and ages, from their first walks to their first bird encounters, while demonstrating the path chosen for each. This time-tested approach of developing instinct, building confidence, and instilling solid foundation commands produces results you can count on, from the backyard to the training fields and onto the wild uplands. Every aspect is shown. The years we're able to hunt with our dogs are almost as short as the seasons themselves. Together, let's make the next dog you train the dog of a lifetime.
That's some good footage, buddy.
I haven't watched that in a while. That was good. And I will take 100% of the videography and photo credit for that show. But a good camera will forgive a lot, and a good editor can fix the rest of it. So, yeah, we decided that was what we were going to do, and it took, like I said, a year and a half to film it, and almost a year to put it together. It was a long battle, and it really came out together well. And we haven't really added anything to it. The one thing I was kind of I wasn't against it in the beginning. I wanted to kind of get into the testing world, because it's a big world, right? You're waist deep in it your whole life. But by sticking with the hunting part, just hunting, it's simpler. The drills that you have to do, I can't imagine how many hours of footage you have to do, where we can just edit in a bird flush, and we've got a controlled young dog showing us exactly what a young dog does.
Right.
It's a little easier. So we stayed with just the hunting side of it. And yeah, we're pretty proud of it. And in fact, I know you can probably put a note up, and we set up a promo code, and the promo code is just the word Purina. So if anybody is interested in that, you can go online and look it up, the Upland Institute. You can watch some more videos. but you can use a promo code Purina and get 20% off any of the 3 courses. There's a train retrieve course, there's the advanced course, and the one that's the main body of it is the foundation fundamentals, which is, Pat, and most people know that have been in it for a while. If you don't have foundation and fundamentals, you're never going to get to the advanced course,
Right.
and it's not hard. It's really not hard. It's just consistency. And I think we make it very digestible for your average person to try it. Yeah.
So Robin, in the replay, and I think I'm not sure exactly what her plan is, but she'll include a link on how to. But if you go to uplandinstitute.com, you can chase it down from there, can't you?
Yeah. Yeah. That's all they got to do is Google that. Just Google the word Upland Institute. It'll come up. It's there's not another one. Kind of like my podcast. There's not another one that comes up in the beginning, I think a couple people have tried, but I think they found out that it's very expensive and very time consuming to do a really comprehensive video series, as you know.
And
It's
you said it exactly right. The thing that struck me was, when I did some of my stuff, is I didn't want dogs that were finished. I wanted dogs that were in, and inevitably you said, all right, we're not going to film this one. And then something priceless happens. You go like,
right,
like that's, everybody should see that. And
right,
so,
right,
yeah,
right.
and,
We had one dog in there that just refused to point, and all that video was so valuable because that's a struggle that a lot of people have. A young dog all of a sudden wants to run a little more than he wants to hunt, or wants to bird a little more than he wants to point. His pointing instinct might be a little weak or hasn't really developed yet. They don't all come out, the light bulb doesn't go on at the same time for all dogs. And so, yeah, we showed those things, and it really related to people and things you can do, to work on that. And
how'd you get to know Justin?
that goes all the way back to my second short hair, believe it or not. He was actually the kennel that I bought it from is long since gone. And he was the kennel, he was cleaning kennels there in high school when I went there to buy my first my first good short hair for full price pedigree, And I met him there, and then I met him when I'd go back and see the owner, and peripherally stayed in touch through the Rough Grouse Society, and but went for many years without, he was always a little further away from me, and then ended up moving closer to me, and his then fiance was my vet. And then
okay.
we had a reconnection, and I was always wondering how many dog trainers have a vet for a wife. Is that common, Pat?
Well, you're right. You meet, I know Mike Lardy met his wife at the vet clinic in Madison, Wisconsin.
There you go.
And Andy, so yeah, that does happen. You do.
I bet you it's got a pattern to it. Yeah.
Well, but it's probably the passion and love for animals and dogs.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a common theme there. And
a good vet can't get enough of it, and a good dog trainer can't get enough of it. And they learn something. I never thought you'd learn something every day until I look back at it and say, because I'm not a dog trainer, I don't say that. But when I'm judging dogs, I do learn things like, oh, I never saw that before. Interesting. I saw something like it, but I didn't see that. And yeah, you never stop learning. You never.
No, it's a school you never graduate from, really. No doubt about it. And Justin's kennel name is what?
It's Black Creek.
Black Creek.
Black Creek. Good luck getting in there. He's got.
Yeah, I just looked at. I watched him there in that short video, and he's got a real naturalness, smoothness, comfort about it. You could see he connect with the dogs and just had a nice demeanor. You can certainly feel that.
Yeah, when you watch the videos, you can see the calmness in the what I guess calmness isn't the right word. His evenness. There's never any emotion. It's just like a method. It's just method, and you just keep doing it and keep doing it. You don't get frustrated. The only thing
Right.
we get frustrated at is when we were looking through all those video clips and we couldn't
Oh,
find things.
remember?
Now that's
Oh,
frustrating.
oh yeah. You got a catalog, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. And I guess you mentioned that he maybe was going to be uncomfortable on camera, but there was nothing there that I mean, but I guess you put a dog in front of him and
When
you
he's
start,
doing his job, yeah, he's a
because I just,
professional actor. Yeah.
I could have a bad day going, and the minute I see that first dog leave the line,
Right.
you're in
That's
a zone.
behind it. Yeah.
You're in a zone. Well, that's awesome. That's awesome. And I think I know we put up. Let me see if Robin's got anything else up there, but we did put the offer up there. There's something else there. There you go. Go to the website, but that'll get you to the website. There's a number of
Yeah.
stuff there. Take a look at it. Looks like good stuff. Really does.
It is. It really is. I'm really, really, really proud of it. And if I left anything in the world of the pointing dogs, it'd be a handful of episodes that I've done that were really fun, and the Upland Institute that we put together. Yeah.
Well, you know what? Somebody taught us. Somebody took the time to see
Mhm.
somebody that didn't know anything
Yep.
and said, I'm going to take my time and share some knowledge. And you're doing the same thing. You're paying it forward. And I
Right.
applaud you for that. I mean, I
Yeah.
know it's a business venture, but more than anything,
Yeah.
it's a love for the future of sporting dogs. And that's obvious in the way you talk and your past. And just makes me smile, makes me think of a lot of, uh, do you stay connected with some of those high school buddies that you hunted with?
I still have one of them that still hunts with me. I will not, uh, for my listeners, if I saw a couple people jump in that they would probably know his name. His name is Rusty, Russell, but everybody calls him Roof.
Roof.
And Roof, he would, if you met him, you would not think he's a hunter, but he will not miss a hunting season one trip. Now he's not going to go out grouse hunting with me, and he's not going to go in a layout blind with me, and doesn't go duck hunting with me, but he's going to South Dakota or North Dakota with me every year, just because we've known each other since before we can really remember. Like we were just neighbor kids and went to the same school, and our moms were best friends. So yeah, one of them still hunts with me, which is great.
Well, that's wonderful. Well, I was hoping that video would be long enough for you to sneak over and, you know, get rid of some of that beer you've been drinking, but maybe,
I'm telling you, this is a focus and energy drink. I do have a kegerator about 15 feet away from me with a wonderful draft beer in it, but I have not had one yet.
but you're going to have one here in a minute to celebrate
Oh,
her.
I'm gonna have one in a minute for sure.
Well, I'll toast to you as well. So, Ron, thank you so much. I mean, I smiled 5 minutes in our first conversation. I'm still doing it. Thank you for your time and your passion and your love for the world of dogs and hunting and all things Purina.
All things, that's true. It is all things Purina.
Well, thank you, Purina. Thank you, Ron. Hunting Dog Podcast, Upland Institute. And we'll see you guys next time. And that's it for the Purina Masterclass. Good night for now.
Thanks, Pat.
Bye-bye.
Appreciate it, Pat. Thank you.